Hello again, everyone. Hope you are well. In the last video, I mentioned my mom and some of the stories that she shared of her memories during the last part of World War II as being a German citizen in Germany. Of course, she was a little girl at the time, but over the years, she has shared bits and pieces of things. But I decided to ask her a little bit more about it earlier today, and she revealed a few things that I had not heard about before, and like a few more details, and I thought they were interesting, and I wanted to share them. Before I get into what she remembered, I want to back up a minute and just tell you about how she met my dad. My dad is American, of course, and my dad was in the Army stationed in Germany, in Koblenz, Germany. He was on the Signal Corps and in the Army, and he was stationed there. I don't remember the exact year, but it was later after World War II during the big reconstruction of Germany. And he met my mother towards the end of his tour there. He was about to leave and go back to the States here, and he met my mom. My mom at the time was just 17 years old. They met at a pub, and they were talking, and she lied and told him that she was 18. So, she didn't want to run him off or anything. So they would talk for a while, and they courted and dated some. And she was almost 18 anyway. She turned 18 soon after. Didn't tell him till later, of course, but took him home. Her parents loved him, and he would go over there often. They'd feed him, have dinner all the time, and so they kept courting until he came back. His tour was ending. He came back here to the States, here in Georgia, and they wrote letters back and forth for about a year, I believe, from what I remember him telling me. And after about a year, she got on a boat, left everything, came here. They got married. Rest is history. So she's been an American citizen for a very long time. There have been trips where she's gone. I've gone a few times over to see the family, our relatives there, and several of them have come here over the years and visited here. So I'll mention that in a little bit more here in a little bit. But so today, my mom was talking about some things, and the reason we were talking about it is I asked her if she's been keeping up with the news about Ukraine and Russia. And she said yes, but she can't watch a lot of it at one time because she feels really sorry for civilians that are caught in this, who are trying to get out of the way, the women and children especially, who are vulnerable, and the elderly, who are trying to get out of the way of these bombs and the rockets and everything. So I think it brought it back for her childhood memory of this, being part of that in the end of the World War II. So I asked her what she remembered the most, and she mentioned several things because she was a pretty little girl, but pretty young girl. And she had a sister that was a few years older, of course. So it was just she, her sister, and her mom, my grandmother. Her dad was away in the war. He was a German soldier in the Wehrmacht. So I'll go into that just a little bit more here in a minute, but she said the worst part that she remembers is the air raid sirens. Now they lived in Koblenz, west part of Germany. And she says, what I remember the most and what I feared the most was when those sirens went off, because we knew we were about to get hit. And she said they would rush to the bomb shelters. They dropped everything. When they heard the sirens, they would drop everything. Everybody goes to the shelters. And it was just frightening. She said that and Koblenz was a target, was a strategic town during the World War II, especially towards the end there when the Allies were really moving in. It got so bad that there was so much destruction around, and so many houses and buildings were getting destroyed that they moved out to the countryside to her grandmother's house out in the further out from the city. And again, her dad, my grandfather, on that side was a German soldier. I don't know a lot about what he, about his tour there, about the war. But I know he was he was in the regular German army. He was not SS or anything like that. But he went in, and from what I gather, he did serve time in France and Russia and survived. I do remember as a kid watching him. He always walked with a limp because he had some permanent frostbite injuries from being in the war. What I would give to now, because he died when I was young, what I would have given to interview him and just sit down with him and just get his stories, that would be awesome. But, okay, back to the countryside. So she said they had built, or they had carved out a shelter, the government, I guess, out of the side of a mountain out there where they had moved to. And so that's where they went when the sirens went off out there, out where their grandmother lived. She said she remembered it being dark, wet, cramped. They would cram people in there. Like she said, they would herd us in there like wild animals. And it was dark. And and she developed, and I think this was why she developed claustrophobia she had for the rest of her life. Still to this day, she can't be in a tight, small space. It freaks her out. But she said once when they were running to the shelter, it had been snowing, and planes were flying all around them, and her mom put she and her sister on a sled and was pulling them on the sled, and warplanes were going all around and buzzing them, and they weren't getting shot at, but they were close, and it just scared them. They heard bombs in the background. When they got close to the shelter, some of the other German soldiers ran out and grabbed she and her sister, and ran inside. But just things like that. She does remember, parts of that. She did say that one of the biggest things was food. Food and water was scarce, and so they were always low on it. They never knew. There was times when they didn't know when they would get their next meal. She said her mom had told her, she and her sister would stay inside, and her mom would go out and try to find food and barter, all kinds of stuff. She said that neighbors would kill you for a piece of bread. It got that bad. It got really bad, and that was towards the end when the Allies were coming in and making advances, and this was towards the end of the war. And she said that luckily, when that happened, it was the Americans, that came in in their area and occupied their town and that part of the country. She said her mom put out a white sheet, over the outside window, and so it's not to, we're not a threat, to the American army. And when food really got low, she said her mom decided to go out there one day and talk to the soldiers, the American soldiers, and ask them for food because she was afraid they were going to starve. It was so low, they had run out of their food and water. So she said the American soldiers did treat them well and gave them food and water, and probably saved them. She credits them with saving them. So she said they treated them well. So that was good to hear. Again, going back to my grandfather, he survived, was a POW for a while. I don't know details of that. I would love to know. But he returned. He was released at the end of the war, and he had some permanent injuries from that. I do remember once he did make a trip when I was a little, I guess, I wasn't a teenager. I was younger than that. But anyway, he made a trip over here to visit us here in Georgia one time before he died. And the man, he had a permanent smile on his face. He was a great personality. He didn't speak much English, so we didn't get to communicate that much. My mom would translate, but he just had a great attitude. He loved being here. He enjoyed every moment, I think, of being here. Every time we went for a ride with somewhere, go to the store, watch soccer or whatever, he wanted to go with us. If we were going out, he wanted to ride along. He just wanted to ride in that back seat, and he looked at everything, and he was just fascinated with everything about this. He was fascinated with restaurants, the grocery stores, and how much food there was, the abundance that we have. He was fascinated by fast food and all these things that he just wasn't used to having or didn't grow up with. He couldn't believe that you could just get free refills in your drinks at a restaurant. Just little things like that. And he just loved it. He wanted to go riding anywhere. It didn't matter what time, day, night. He'd just go with you. And just was really cool to be around, you know. Very nice. Just a good, seemed like a very good guy. I don't, you know, don't remember a whole lot, but anyway, he just loved being here. But my mom, you know, she when she was talking about this today, she was, I think the memory started coming back in a little bit, and she was getting a little emotional a couple of times, but she did. She wanted to talk about it. This was probably the longest time she's talked about all that. But it was very interesting, very interesting. So I asked her how, when she started dating my dad, you know, how her parents felt about that. She said they were fine. They loved him, you know. So so I thought that was interesting. So anyway, I just wanted to share that. Share your thoughts. If you know of similar stories or if you have any questions, please throw them at me. But anyway, I hope this was enjoyable to hear, and hope you have a good rest of the day. God bless you. I'll see you soon.